De verdad es un honor estar aquí en Bogotá con ustedes. Qué país tan maravilloso, qué ciudad tan maravillosa. Me encanta esta pasión por la innovación, por la imaginación. De verdad que, wow. Me encanta estar aquí con ustedes y espero esta tarde volarles la cabeza. Entonces, bueno, vamos a conversar hoy sobre una visión única sobre el futuro, una visión sobre la innovación y la creatividad y la capacidad humana de extender nuestras capacidades creativas a través de nuestra tecnología. La mayoría de la charla va a ser en inglés, pero diferentes pedazos los traduciré en español. But I promise you it's going to be awesome. So, I'm very passionate about human creativity. I'm very passionate about human imagination. La imaginación humana me apasiona. And this has led to a passion for technology and innovation, la tecnología y la innovación. The reason is because technology and innovation is the embodiment of human imagination. Technology and innovation is the literalization of human creativity, of human agency. Technology is how we impregnate the world with mind, with agency. Technology is how we extend our reach, and we've always done it. We didn't stay in the caves. We haven't stayed on the planet, and we won't even stay within the limitations of biology. The cognitive philosophers David Chalmers and Andy Clark describe technology as a kind of scaffolding that extends our thought, our reach, and our vision. We build our tools, and the tools build us. Our thoughts shape our spaces, and our spaces return the favor. Now again, we have this symbiotic relationship with technology. We use our tools to overcome our limits. And we've always done it. 100,000 years ago, in the savannas of Africa, when early humans first picked up a stick to reach a fruit on a really high tree, we've been using our tools to extend our reach. Utilizamos nuestras herramientas para extender nuestras capacidades, para extender lo que podemos lograr. So it's natural. It is what it means to be human. We are a tool-making animal. When we first started using stone tools 100,000 years ago, over time, our jaws shrank. Our biology actually changed because of early stone tools. When we discovered fire to cook our food, fire acted as an external stomach that pre-digested our food, making every meal more energy efficient and freeing up our cognitive real estate, freeing up our mind to have the time to develop culture, music, and art. So our tools are us. Our technology, even though it's beyond our skin tissue, is still endogenous to who we are. La tecnología es parte del exoskeleton del ser humano. The difference is that technological change used to occur over many generations. El cambio no se sentía porque ocurría over many generations. But today we live in an age of exponential technological advancements. Hoy vivimos en un mundo exponencial, donde el progreso es exponencial. Pero eso es difícil de captar. It's not intuitive. And the reason it's not intuitive is because our brains evolved in a world that was linear, where change occurred over a long time. We had to make linear calculations 100,000 years ago. How far away is that lion before it gets over here and eats me? That's linear calculation. But today we live in a world that is global and that is exponential. Y eso nos cuesta captarlo. Pensar exponencialmente mente, no nos viene natural, no nos entra en la cabeza unless we make a cognitive shift. Now, a very good example to illustrate the difference between exponential technological change and linear change is an example used by the futurist Ray Kurzweil, famous inventor and head of engineering at Google. And he basically says this: if you take 30 linear steps, 30 pasos linear, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you get to 30. That makes sense because that's linear. That's how we think about change. But now take the same amount of steps, los mismos 30 pasos, but this time you take them with exponential leaps. You would go 2, 4, 8. By step 30, you're at 1 billion. Think about that for a second. 30 linear steps takes you to 30. 30 exponential steps, the same amount of steps, gets you to 1 billion. And technology evolves with those exponential steps. Technological progress is under those exponential numbers. That's the reason why the cell phone in your pocket today is 1 million times cheaper, 1 million times smaller, and 1,000 times more powerful than what used to be a $60 million supercomputer that was half a building in size 40 years ago. So what used to be half a building 40 years ago now fits in your pocket. In fact, this is 1,000 times more powerful. So the supercomputers, las supercomputadoras de ayer, hoy en día están en tu bolsillo. How does that change what's possible for us? ¿Cómo eso cambia lo que es posible? Un muchacho en el medio de África hoy en día con un teléfono inteligente tiene mejor tecnología de comunicación informática que el presidente de los Estados Unidos tenía hace 25 años. A young kid in a rural part of Colombia with a smartphone has better communications technology than a president had 25 years ago. Take that in for a second. ¿Qué tipo de oportunidad, qué tipo de chance tenemos to reinvent the space of the possible? People used to say, bueno, a lo mejor podemos sobreponer tal problema, pero va a tardar 50 años, va a tardar 70 años, va a tardar in my next life. Olvídense de eso. Exponential change means that in years you can achieve decades worth of transformation under linear change. There's that great quote that says that there are decades where nothing happens, and there are days when decades happen. This is exponential change. This is exponential progress. If I have one thing I want you to take from this lecture when this is over, is I want you guys to go back into the world thinking exponentially. When you think about a problem, when you think about cómo sobreponer un problema, cómo sobreponer una dificultad, you have to think exponential opportunities. Cuando se sientan intimidados por el cambio, por la velocidad del cambio, en vez de sentirse intimidados, en vez de sentirse asustados, instead you should be exponentially excited because the sky is the limit. Again, we build the tools, and the tools build us, como decía Marshall McLuhan. So I started doing a series of digital videos, unos videos por internet que se llaman pastillas de asombro, shots of awe. And the idea was to take 2 or 3 minutes to make a case for how we overcome our limitations using our tools, using our brains, using our imagination, right? Reality is coupled to perception. If you change perception, you change reality. So I want to start off today by showing you one video. It's called To Be Human is to be Transhuman. Ser humano es ser transhumano. We use our tools to transcend our limits. That's who we are. Por favor, el primer video.
There's a great line by Shakespeare in which he says, "We know what we are, we know not what we may be." And in the age of accelerating technologies in which we extend the cognitive reach of our minds, the perimeters of our humanness, with these extensions of self, these exoskeletons, these technological scaffoldings, the wings of our aircrafts and the signals traveling through our smartphones, sending our thoughts electrified at the speed of light across oceans of sky. We redefine and extend what it means to be human. Edward O. Wilson says, we have actually decommissioned natural selection, and now we must look deep within ourselves and decide what we wish to become. We are now the chief agents of evolution. We have reverse engineered the software of biology and are about to rewire and upgrade and redefine what it is to be a Homo sapien. Juan Enriquez uses the term Homo evolutus, the being that evolves itself, that transforms itself, right? Ray Kurzweil, we've been staying in caves. We haven't stayed on the planet. Biology just another membrane to be transcended. Marvin Minsky used to say, will robots inherit the earth? Yes, they will, but they will be our children. I love this idea because we hear the term transhumanism. What it means to be human is to be transhuman. We are the species that transforms and transcends. We never stopped. We always did. It's what we are.
Pretty cool, right? Thanks, guys. So again, the idea is, how do we use media to tell this story? How do we use media to pattern our imagination, to program our minds, to change our cultural operating system? The iOS, el sistema operativo de nuestra mente. Cómo programamos y reprogramamos cultura, right? Because again, reality is coupled to perception. So how do we upgrade our perception of what is possible? By assimilating the implications of exponential change. Now, most audiences around the world, when I make the case of exponential technologies, la tecnología informática exponencial, la gente dice, okay, we've seen computers, we've seen digital change exponentially. Pero what about the physical world? El mundo físico, hecho de concreto y aluminio. That's obviously not exponential, right? We still have to move labor and build stuff. Guess what? It turns out that the physical world is now also becoming software. Take biotechnology, la biotecnología, which means mastering the information processes of biology. La biotecnología nos permite programar y reprogramar la biología, la genética, como si fuera software digital, literally. And the speed at which we're learning to sequence our genes, to read the software of life, the canvas of life itself, is going 3 times faster than exponential. La velocidad en que estamos incrementando nuestra capacidad de manipular nuestra genética, de programar y reprogramar nuestro software, está yendo 3 veces más rápido que esos números exponenciales que le estaba explicando antes. So we're about to see a revolution in biology and in healthcare that is going to be as impactful as the digital revolution was over the last 30 years. Lo que es la salud, lo que es la intervención en nuestra propia genética, va a ser una vaina que va a cambiar el mundo de una manera que no se pueden imaginar. We're going to upgrade our iOS. It's the beginning of humans 2.0. The famous physicist Freeman Dyson talks about a very near future where a new generation of artists and engineers, artistas y ingenieros, will be writing genomes, van a escribir y programar genética, the way that Shakespeare used to write verses. So imagine a poet making art with the alphabet. So the engineers and the programmers of the future are going to make poetry out of biology. And that's coming at an exponential rate. We're going to have lab-on-a-chip technologies, entire hospitals, laboratories on the chips, in our smartphones, that can diagnose us better than 10 board-certified doctors. This will shrink down to the size of a blood cell interfacing directly with our biological neurons. Our technology is going to go inside of us. This is what's coming. Take nanotechnology, la nanotecnología, which allows us to pattern atoms, the building blocks of the physical world, because everything is made of atoms. With nanotech, we can program and reprogram atoms the way we program ones and zeros in digital. So with nanotechnology, the physical world becomes programmable. We can write software that writes its own hardware. You can take an information file that instructs matter to self-assemble into a physical thing. So with biotech, we can print organs. With nanotech, we can print objects. This is what's coming. The entire physical world is going to be programmable the way the digital world is. This makes us gods. This makes everything a condensation of human imagination. This makes the triumph of us turning our minds inside out into the future of what it is to be human. We are going to be inhabiting our own imaginations. Imagine that. This next video is about what happens when the biotechnology revolution, when the nanotechnology revolution, and these are the new startups of the future, by the way. These are the new tech startups, the new Silicon Valley, the new Bogota, Silicon Valley, biotech, nanotech, and of course, artificial intelligence. These three revolutions taken together, wow, abren un espacio de posibilidad que redefine lo que es ser un ser humano. Sky's the limit. Segundo video, por favor.
The future of us. What does that even mean? The future of us. It's a look at what comes next. It's a look at what might be. Because today, exponentially emerging technologies are transforming what's possible. They're helping us overcome, transcend even biological limitations. The very rules of what it is to be human are up for grabs. We're rewriting the software of life with biotechnology. We're turning matter into a programmable medium with nanotechnology. We're creating sentient minds with artificial intelligence. They're not bound by the limitations of biology. These three overlapping revolutions, GNR, genetics, nanotechnology, and robotics, together will be leveraged to lead us towards a black hole-like, impossible to fathom singularity. It's like staring into the sun, a moment of arousing symphonic climax when all of mind, leverage and network together, transcends its biological origins. We become something more. People worry about the AIs and the them. Well, as Kurzweil says, that's going to be us. The future of us is ours to dream of.
Yeah. Thanks. So, thank you. I obviously like to think about the future, and I obviously care a lot about exponential change. But I think something that you can bring back from those future visions into the now is this idea of the adjacent possible, right? Part of my goal today is to get you to transcend the been there's and done that's of the adult mind with their nodding resignations into nothingness, and to see the world as if through the eyes of a child, to see the world as if anything is possible. Now, I've just given you data-driven extrapolations, fact-based knowledge to inform this particular state of mind. In other words, everything is possible. This stuff really is happening. But most people still haven't changed the software of how they see the world. Everything good and great begins at the edge of our comfort zone. Tenemos que salirnos de nuestros círculos cómodos. Tenemos que cuestionar todo. Cuestionar dogma, cuestionar ideología, cuestionar limitación en nuestra cabeza, right? To dissolve those mental maps, to overcome those patterns in our thinking that keep us tied to the way things have always been, or to the way things used to be. El escritor Stephen Johnson wrote a wonderful book called Where Good Ideas Come From, A Natural History of Innovation. And in the book, he introduces the concept of the adjacent possible. Concepto como que de los perímetros de la posibilidad. And he describes the adjacent possible as a shadow future that hovers over the present, that provides a map, that provides literally a map of all the ways in which the present might reinvent itself. So the adjacent possible is an attitude. It's an attitude shift. Es una forma diferente de ver el presente. Cuando tienes un problema, algo que tienes que sobreponer, it's a way of approaching that. Instead of seeing the problem, you see all the different solutions, all the remixes that can come into play to help you overcome that limitation. That's innovative thinking, right? That's Silicon Valley thinking. Entrepreneurs are crazy enough to think that they can change the world, and guess what? They can, right? Today, young people on the back of exponential technologies can achieve change that only governments and corporations used to be able to achieve. So I want you guys to take this idea of the adjacent possible, practice it in your own lives. That's what this next video is about. Próximo video, por favor.
I'm very inspired by the idea of the adjacent possible that Stephen Johnson wrote about in his book, Where Good Ideas Come From. And he says that the adjacent possible is like a shadow future that sort of hovers over the present state of things. The adjacent possible is like a map of all the ways in which the present can reinvent itself. I love this idea because it implies a kind of built-in optimism in how we see the world. It sort of implies a different way of looking at things that is not held back, that will not be bound by what is, but that is always remixing, that is always reinventing, that is always looking at how we can transform the material properties of the present so that we can bring into being our virtual models, our imaginative visions. Because that's what human beings do. Imagination allows us to conceive of these delightful future possibilities and then literally pull the present forward to meet it. And increasingly powerful technologies are shrinking the lag time between what we can imagine and what we can create. The adjacent possible is a move that is accelerating. Adjacent possible is increasingly being able to be instantiated in real time. We're time-lapsing our capacity to literally render our dreams into being. So for that reason, the adjacent possible rocks my imagination.
It's a good message, right? The adjacent possible. You know, part of the reason that I've been inspired to make these videos, and these videos are very much a passion project. O sea, este proyecto de las pastillas de asombro es un proyecto de pasión, es un proyecto que hago simplemente porque me explotan estas ideas y las quiero comunicar y las quiero diseminar y it means the world to me to share this stuff with you. And part of the reason that I make these videos the way I make them is because I want to get you out of your heads, right? Quiero sacar a la gente de su cabeza. And the reason is that some of our greatest creativity happens when we're not in our heads. When we silence the inner critic, the part of us that says, no, eso no se puede, no, es imposible. The little negative Scrooge that we have in our heads telling us that we can't, or that it's not possible, that's bound by the past, that's bound by the way things used to be. And only through shock and awe are we able to get out of our heads enough to let some light in. El escritor Tom Robbins has a great line. He says, you cannot manufacture imagination or wonderment, but what you can do is pull people so radically out of context, pull them so radically out of themselves, either through the use of media or any kind of intense experience, that you, in a way, force them or encourage them to literally take like a cognitive slip and slide. You force them to gawk in amazement at these ubiquitous everyday wonders that we're normally culturally disposed to ignore. Because we tend to not see what's right in front of us. We're distracted more than ever before. There's a million signals competing for our attention. Most of the media is doom and gloom. And so unless we're decentered, unless something yanks us out of ourselves, we won't get to open our heads and open our minds and open our hearts a little bit. So this next video I want to show you is about the importance of non-conformity, of thinking differently, right? Here's to the crazy ones, as Steve Jobs used to say. And I encourage all of you guys to be like salmon swimming upstream. You know, to innovate is to say that the impossible is only impossible until somebody does it and makes it possible. And so that's what this video is about. Non-conformity and living a creative life. Próximo video, por favor. Oh wait, no, it's the one right before that one, sorry. Que se llama non-conformity. There you go, this one. Thank you.
So one of the prevailing motifs here on Shots of Awe is as human beings, as conscious agents, how do we resolve the inherent tension between wanting to realize, fully realize our potential, to realize ourselves as individuals who stand with dignity, and resist the tug of conformity? How do we avoid succumbing to a zombified trance state of blindly following others in a herd as sheep, as hamsters in the hamster wheel? You know, it's funny because I think that the way we resolve that is by taking that plunge, by answering that call that Joseph Campbell talks about. There is no one map for how to live our lives. Reality is just a word, and you're not supposed to use it without quotation marks around it anyway, as Joseph Campbell says. We are all free to create our own reality, but it's only when we are bold enough that we can condition our thinking to transcend what Robert Anthony Wilson calls the reality tunnel, right? This linguistic and conceptual and symbolic framework that constructs reality, this animatrix pulled in front of your eyes, blinding you from ecstatic visions of what might be behind those walls. You know, we are larvae who haven't turned ourselves into butterflies yet. And there's that great line by Nietzsche that says, those who were seen dancing were called insane by those who could not hear the music. Never forget the words of Jack Kerouac. The only people for me are the mad ones. Mad to live, mad to talk, mad to be saved, desirous of everything at the same time. Those who never yawn or say a commonplace thing, but burn, burn, burn like yellow Roman candles exploding like spiders across the sky.
That. I wanted to film an audience, have a response to that video for a really long time. So thank you. I want to talk finally about the subject of awe, el asombro. I think that awe and wonderment is a big part of the human experience. It's when we connect to something larger than ourselves. It's the transcendent. It's the holy. It's the sacred. And the reason that I call these videos shots of awe, like an espresso shot of awe, un espresso de asombro, is because there's some science that's come out of Berkeley University and Stanford about awe, about the emotion of awe. Now in the study, they describe awe as an experience of such perceptual expansion, such perceptual vastness, that you have to reformat or reconfigure your mental maps of the world to assimilate the experience. Las experiencias de asombro nos forzan a reconfigurar nuestros mapas de lo posible para asimilar la experiencia que estamos viviendo. So, whether it's the first time that you saw images of the universe from the Hubble Space Telescope, or the first time you saw a newborn child, You're witnessing a miracle. You're witnessing the divine. And in those moments, that cognitive ecstasy, that exhilarating neurostorm of intense intellectual pleasure, not only is it wonderful, not only is it transcendiente, but it turns out that once the experience passes, después del momento de asombro, we're left with residue. Nos sobra these feelings of increased compassion, increased well-being, and increased creativity that last way more than the experience itself. So every time we experience that awe, that wonderment, that inspiration, that majesty, that rhapsody, it leaves us high. It leaves us with increased creativity, compassion, and well-being. So blowing our own minds is therapeutic. Volarse la cabeza con inspiración es terapia. Timothy Leary was right. In order to use your head, you've got to go out of your mind. That's why it's important to question everything. That's why it's important to decenter the self. And this last video that I'm leaving you with is an ode, is an anthem to the power of awe. What does awe feel like? What does it feel like when we connect to something larger than ourselves? I don't care if it comes from religion, from innovation, from sex, or from drugs. As long as you connect with something higher than you, that you come out of the experience wanting to serve humanity, to serve your fellow man, to be kinder, more compassionate, more creative, more innovative, dissolve those mental boundaries and become more than what you were, then that is what awe is about. Carl Sagan, the astronomer, he coined the term wonder junkie, an addict to the wonder, an addict to the question, not just to answers, but to better questions. So question everything, and enjoy his last video on awe. Próximo video, por favor.
I think a lot about the contrast between banality and wonder, between disengagement and radiant ecstasy, between being unaffected by the here and now and being absolutely ravished emotionally by it. And I think one of the problems for human beings is mental habits. Once we create a comfort zone, we rarely step outside of that comfort zone. But the consequence of that is a phenomenon known as hedonic adaptation. Overstimulation to the same kind of thing, the same stimuli again and again and again, renders said stimuli invisible. Your brain has already mapped it in its own head, and you no longer literally have to be engaged by that. We have eyes yet see not, ears that hear not, and hearts that neither feel nor understand. There's a great book called The Wandering Brain that says that one of the ways that we elicit wonder is by scrambling the self temporarily so that the world can seep in. As Henry Miller says, even a blade of grass, when given proper attention, becomes an infinitely magnificent world in itself. You know, Darwin said attention, if sudden and close, graduates into surprise, and this into astonishment, and this into stupefied amazement. That's what rapture is. That's what illumination is. That's what that sort of infinite comprehending awe that human beings love so much. And so how do we do that? How do we mess with our perceptual apparatus in order to have the kind of emotional and aesthetic experience from life that we render most meaningful? Because we all know those moments are there. Those are the moments that make final cut. Only in these moments we experience afresh the hardly bearable ecstasy of direct energy exploding on our nerve endings. This is the rhapsodic, ecstatic bursting forth of awe that expands our perceptual parameters beyond all previous limits. And we literally have to reconfigure our mental models of the world in order to assimilate the beauty of that downward. So that is what it means to be inspired. The Greek root of the term means to breathe in, to take it in. We fit the universe through our brains and it comes out in the form of nothing less than poetry. We have a responsibility to awe.
Bueno, como dice ese último mensaje, tenemos una responsabilidad de asombrarnos, de cuestionar todo, y de inspirarnos y maravillarnos. So I really want to thank you guys for having me. I want to thank Impulsa. I want to thank you guys, all the innovators. I want to thank the University, Festival Héroes, el gobierno colombiano, Benjamín, todos los fans. And it's been wonderful, guys. Thank you. Now to continuar la discusión, I would like to invite a Alfonso Prada, el director del SENA, a acompañarme aquí un momentito. Gracias. Eso no más. ¿Cómo estás? Oye, muy bien, gracias. Oye, igualmente. Habrá que te traiga un micrófono. Handheld mic para él. ¿Cómo estás? Chévere, gracias. Gracias al SENA, muchas gracias por tenerme, muchas gracias, de verdad. Maravilla, qué divertido. Aquí está. Eso, gracias. Hola.
Hola Jason,
¿Qué tal?
ahora sí te saludo aquí delante de todos estos jóvenes colombianos.
Qué maravilla.
Muchas gracias por compartir esta energía, esta maravilla
Oye, muchas
de
gracias.
intervención. Te seguimos en las redes y sabemos con quién estamos. Estamos con un rockstar, realmente un hombre maravilloso, un joven que como muchos de ustedes se arriesga a muchas cosas. Yo quiero hacerle unas muy breves preguntas para rematar esta presentación.
Muchísimas gracias.
La primera es que claramente en América Latina estamos viviendo un momento muy especial.
Sí.
Un momento muy especial, y es que acabamos de ganar buena parte de los premios Grammy.
Maravilla, claro.
Y el mejor jugador del mundo es colombiano, James, está en España, conquistando el planeta.
Maravilla.
Pero también somos en los deportes, en la cultura, etcétera.
Sí.
Tenemos cantantes pues de la talla de Shakira, etcétera.
Claro.
La pregunta es para ti, si ves que en el panorama claramente habrá la posibilidad de que así como hemos logrado el triunfo y la atención mundial en estos temas, lo vamos a poder hacer en el tema del emprendimiento, del empleo joven.
Sí, yo estoy seguro que sí. O sea, la energía que yo siento de Colombia, de Bogotá, o sea, y mis visitas a sitios como Santiago, en Chile, invitaciones que me han hecho a Lima y a todos estos países. O sea, tú sientes una movida hacia adelante, tú sientes un hambre para sobreponernos, para abrirnos. O sea, tú ves la penetración de la tecnología, de las redes sociales en Latinoamérica. Es increíble, es hasta más que países del norte, ¿entiendes? O sea, tú ves hasta un país como Venezuela, con tantos problemas que tiene. O sea, tú ves la juventud, o sea, emprendida con las redes sociales, emprendida en empezar a fomentar ese cambio. Y bueno, siendo venezolano, o sea, a mí me da mucha tristeza lo que se ha habido ahí. Pero en contraste a lo que se ha habido en Venezuela, tú ves países como Colombia, como Brasil, como Perú, o sea, que wow, o sea, están yendo para adelante y se siente. Me recuerdo cuando estuve dando una charla en Santiago de Chile, y conocí a la gente de Startup Chile y ese movimiento donde el gobierno estaba diciendo a la gente para que vengan y hagan startups, y tú dices, wow, qué increíble. Y ver una organización como esta, un evento como este, donde el gobierno y el sector privado, los estudiantes juntos, creando esta cultura de que sí se puede. Trust me, man, Silicon Valley se va a quedar atrás comparado con los colombianos.
Bueno, estamos haciendo una apuesta fuerte en Colombia,
Sí.
lo están haciendo en Estados Unidos, en Europa, y recientemente tomamos una decisión dura,
Ajá.
y es hacer o dar un salto muy fuerte hacia la formación y la educación por competencia. Un joven puede ser egresado de una universidad, puede ser egresado de una institución tecnológica, puede ser egresado del SENA. Lo importante no es el título universitario, sino la competencia para la cual está preparado. Y estamos dando el paso al marco, lo que se llama, digamos, en la academia y en el desarrollo de la educación en el mundo, hacia el marco de la cualificación. De tal manera que la cadena de formación siga muy dependiendo de la competencia individual. Hoy es mucho más importante que un título,
Claro.
la individualidad, pero también la capacidad de trabajo en equipo. ¿Cuál es la perspectiva que desde tu sitio ves de la evolución de esta tendencia de la educación en el mundo?
Sí, bueno, o sea, eso se siente, por eso tú ves a tantos entrepreneurs en Silicon Valley diciendo que la universidad en su formato del pasado a lo mejor no es tan relevante para la startup culture. Y muchos de los fundadores de estas compañías son gente que se han autoeducado. You know, you have the internet, tienes Google, o sea, si tú de verdad te quieres emprender, ahí está. Toda la información del mundo disponible en tu bolsillo. Eso ha democratizado el acceso a la información. Y bueno, muchas universidades que de repente han sido excluyentes, o sea, no todo el mundo ha tenido la oportunidad de formarse en las universidades. Hoy en día la capacidad está ahí. O sea, hay una democratización al acceso a la información. Y all you gotta do is plug into that. Y por eso tú ves startups en Kenia, sitios en África. O sea, mi mamá es profesora en la Escuela Internacional en Nairobi. Y ahí hay un startup culture increíble también. O sea, yo estuve en India también y se ve un startup culture increíble. Entonces, I just see that, básicamente, las universidades se tendrán que adaptar. Pero the truth of the matter is, it's all about you guys. ¿Entiendes? La gente joven is empowered like never before. Entonces yo digo, it's up to us. Y bueno, si lo podemos hacer en asociación con gobiernos, con el sector privado, como se ve aquí, o sea, esta colaboración que se ve aquí, en la vibra que se siente es increíble. You don't see that kind of collaboration in other places. Pero aquí se siente como que everybody's got the priorities right. And nobody's an ideologue. Everybody's being practical, pragmatic y para adelante. Y se siente.
Muy bien, muy bien. Bueno, el emprendimiento es mucho más. El emprendimiento es mucho más que un negocio.
Sí.
Ahora vamos a ver un poco más de eso, pero digamos, detrás de un emprendedor hay una persona valiente, arriesgada,
Claro.
berraca, como decimos en Colombia.
Sí, sí.
Hay una gran decisión. Esa decisión requiere muchas veces inspiración. Compártenos una inspiración que te haya llevado a hacer lo que tú eres hoy, que te vemos además como un emprendedor.
Gracias. Sí, bueno, I think of myself como un emprendedor, like a media entrepreneur. O sea, a mí me parece que los medios de comunicación son y siempre han sido importantísimos. O sea, that's why they call it programming. Cuando la gente habla de los medios, habla sobre la programación, porque los medios nos programan. Entonces yo pienso que uno tiene una responsabilidad no solo de cuál es tu dieta informática, cuál es el contenido que tú estás consumiendo, porque eso está programando tu cabeza, sino también como creador de medios, porque todos somos creadores, todo lo que tuiteamos, todo lo que compartimos por Facebook y Instagram, está programando a nuestros círculos sociales, ¿entiendes? Nos programamos y nos programan de vuelta. Entonces yo digo, wow, o sea, tenemos que ponernos a pensar qué responsabilidad tenemos cada uno de nosotros de cómo contribuimos a la conversación mediática, a la conversación entre mentes que estamos teniendo en tiempo real, virtualmente, todo el tiempo. Yo creo que para mí la inspiración de crear mi propio contenido, primero que todo, ha venido de muchas de las ideas de Ray Kurzweil, el jefe de engineering de Google, que es el que ha estado hablando sobre las tendencias exponenciales de la tecnología, de lo importante que es de pensar exponencialmente, y simplemente de ir a sitios como la conferencia TED y los videos de TED en internet, donde tanto conocimiento, tanto asombro, milagro, tecnologías que están saliendo al mundo, pero que no se conocen. O sea, que de verdad en los medios principales se enfocan solamente en el entretenimiento pop y muchas veces este tipo de ideas no se ven. Entonces para mí la inspiración fue, wow, aquí hay un agujero, ¿entiendes? Hay un espacio para crear contenido que sea entretenido, pero que sea sobre este tipo de ideas, que son las ideas más importantes en la historia de la humanidad. O sea, estamos hablando de la tecnología para extender nuestra imaginación, estamos hablando de reprogramar nuestra biología, estamos hablando de la nanotecnología. ¡Wow! El mundo va a cambiar y nadie está hablando de esto en el espacio pop. Entonces ahí es donde yo me metí. Y bueno, una inspiración para mí toda mi vida ha sido mi madre. Mi madre es profesora de literatura, o sea, y me enseñó a mí también en el high school. Y ella era una de esas profesoras, obviamente, que te dice que cuestiones todo el dogma, que todo es posible, que el poder de tu imaginación, de tu visualización, es lo que sobrepone todos los límites. Y bueno, tenerla a ella como ejemplo, como artista, como poeta, como escultora, o sea, para mí siempre ha sido una inspiración. O sea, mi familia siempre me ha impulsado y me ha dicho, go for it. Do what you love and be kind. Eso es lo más importante.
Muy bien, muy bien. A propósito mencionabas a Google.
Sí.
Ahora nosotros tenemos, pues obviamente, un panorama de comunicación supremamente sofisticado,
Sí.
con Facebook, Twitter,
Sí.
en fin. Nuestros jóvenes miran a una generación que se inventó una nueva comunicación, que está revolucionando el mundo, pero obviamente los ven lejos. Esos hombres, esos jóvenes, se inventaron una locura y terminaron cambiando el mundo. ¿Qué les podrías decir a estos jóvenes que están aquí? ¿De cuál es la idea del futuro? ¿En qué tipo de oportunidad y de emprendimiento los puedes ver ubicados hacia adelante?
Yo diría más que nunca, o sea, entender esta tendencia exponencial es algo que es muy difícil para la gente. En inglés lo llaman future blind, that we are future blind, porque nuestros cerebros están diseñados para pensar de una forma linear, gradual. Entonces, eso del exponential change no nos sale naturalmente, no es el instinto nuestro. Y por lo tanto, a menos que lo pongamos en práctica todos los días, no nos damos cuenta de las oportunidades que tenemos enfrente. Por eso compañías como la Kodak, que es una compañía de billones y billones y billones de dólares, se fue a la nada, porque no entendieron digital, no entendieron lo que venía. They had a business model que le funcionaba por 50 años y bueno, ¿qué es eso? ¿Qué es? Las compañías de cable hoy en día, las que dicen que no quieren poner el contenido en internet. Y ellos piensan que la gente va a seguir pagando por sus suscripciones de cable en la era de Netflix y la era de estas cosas. Olvídense, te adaptas o te mueres. Pero por otro lado, los que sepan inventar, los que vean el futuro exponencial, son los próximos Uber, los próximos Facebook, los próximos, el Uber de healthcare. ¿Entiendes? La aplicación con el teléfono, con el sensor dentro de tu cuerpo que te va a medir la salud y te va a dar recomendaciones de cómo cambiar tu behavior. O sea, healthcare, biotech, quantified self-revolution, on-demand economy, estos son los que están ahorita explotando. Y lo ven en Estados Unidos. Y ustedes pueden crear la versión latina que sobrepone la versión global de cualquiera de esos servicios. Se los digo clarito. O sea, ustedes son capaces de todo eso y me imagino que lo van a hacer. Sí.
Pues, Jason, para hablar precisamente de ese tipo de oportunidades y la forma como podemos apoyar a estos héroes, es que voy a hablarles un rato, pero antes te voy a despedir tranquilo.
Muchísimas gracias.
Con un aplauso que se venga de aquí a...